Morning, folks. So I figured I haven't done any reviews or any information on this quad since I bought it last year. So I figured I would do a quick recap on it, I guess you want to call it that, on basically 1 year of ownership. Kind of what I found works well on it, if there's a few issues that have cropped up in the last year, give you guys an idea of what I think about it after I've actually put it through its paces and run it for just over a year now. So stay tuned, we'll kind of do a quick recap on that. Okay, so as you guys can tell, I have changed some things around on it now that I've been using it for a year. So things that I recently had done to it, I did put a 4,000 pound winch on it. It's a little bit overkill for the quad, but it carries it well. And that way I honestly don't have to worry about pulling power. And realistically, it was a good deal is what it worked out to. So that's why we went a little more oomph than it really needed. I've also added the spotlights to it. So the light bar up front beefs up the headlights. That was one of my complaints with it. The headlights, they're clear, but they just weren't bright enough, I found stock. And then you notice the side pods are kicked out for ditch lights. Just lights everything up in front, especially coming back at night. Lighting is one of my biggest pet peeves. That's one of the things we added into it. Walking around the side, you see I've also put the dual gun mounts on the front. I do like to carry a shotgun or a 22 for grouse along with whatever hunting rifle I have, so I've added a double carrier on there. Suspension wise, everything is still the same. I haven't changed any of that layout. On the back, I have added a few things to the rack. I carry a soft bag. What I like about that is I can unclip it, shuffle it to the front if I need to. I can move those gun racks in the front. I can carry an animal on the back. I can also pull that off, throw it in the truck if I need to, if I'm running something different. So I can keep all my gear in one thing and then just unclip that bag and run that bag independently as I need to. Also carry, this is a fuel canister holster here. So I do carry an extra 5 gallons of fuel with me. I've got a chainsaw press on the left side that I've added just because, especially in spring, you never know what's been blown down over the winter. And then you notice on the bottom here, I have added a silencer muffler to it. And this is actually from Silent. Pretty decent. Brackets weren't 100% what we kind of hoped they would be. I had my buddy Shane do all the custom stuff on this. So he put that heat shield on the back. He did change the mounting setup a little bit to make it work better for me and allow me to still be able to not have to put it too low so I can still use my hitch and everything on the back there. So it did require a little bit of custom fabbing to get that on there and get it to work. It does make a difference. It definitely, you notice a difference in the decibels. Not so much because I'm worried about the animals hearing me per se, but I do use it around the farm too. It kicks that decibel down, makes that exhaust a little more bearable, especially if I'm sitting on it for hours on end. So it is a handy thing that way. And honestly, for the price point, it's an easy thing to add to it, right? So the only thing I would recommend with those is just make sure you double check. There are different mufflers in different settings for different elevations. So take into account where you're going to be running it mostly, and then pick the right muffler that works with where you're going to run it. That way you don't run into any compression issues. Like I said, the saw press on the side there, that's a Kolpin one. And then we'll come up here. So on the instrument cluster, this is where Shane worked his magic for me. So I've got the winch controls mounted on the left-hand side here. Nice thing about it is, especially I've got slightly bigger hands, so I can still grab my brake, I can grab my handlebar and still work the winch so I can steady myself if I need to. So that's a handy thing to have there. I've added a throttle assist on that side. Just makes it a little bit easier if I'm running longer roads into hunting areas. It just takes some of the fatigue off my thumb there, which is a real thing when you're running it long enough, especially if it's cold out. The only thing I found is if I'm carrying somebody on the back, I do sit a little farther forward, and then it has turned into a little bit of an issue because it sticks out so far and it makes the throttle as sensitive as it does. So if you're going to two up on this thing, I'd probably remove that, to be honest, and just run it normally. So far on this machine here now, so I've got 415 kilometers on it so far. So quick basic math, I want to say that's around 180, 200 miles. So I mean, it's still very much within the break-in period. I haven't done much with it. I've only got 40 and a half hours on it. but it has been really good to me. I did do the first round of service at the dealer, which I think I went over in the last video. It was kind of an expensive way to do it, but especially with the first service, I wanted to get that out of the way and make sure we were covered under warranty and all that other fun stuff, just in case anything did crop up. But gauge wise, I've been really happy with it. The display is easy to use, it's handy, it's easy to read, even in the sunlight, it's been good. I mean, as far as user friendliness goes, the setup has been really nice. I have no complaints as far as that goes. The only thing, you know, the shift has gotten better. I know we went over that when I first picked this thing up, that the shift out of reverse was clunky. It's still a bit clunky. I don't know if part of that is I've learned how to work it a little bit better, or it's also kind of loosened up a little bit with time. But it is working a little bit smoother than it was. So, I mean, that has gotten better, which is a good thing. We're gonna move up. The only other thing I've done up here is I added, this is the switch for those light bars. So this is it's kind of cut out so you could put a 12 volt in there. I don't run anything where I need to charge it off a 12 volt, so I wasn't gonna install one of those anyway. So it worked out that we were able to just kind of barely fit that switch in there. It's a nice rocker switch, it's weather sealed. So it's a little bigger than what I was gonna pop in there, and it's a little bit of a different spot, but the wiring doesn't mess up with anything else. Shane was able to tuck that in for me and get that right in with the stock wiring so that it looks a lot better. It looks like it was supposed to be there, which is handy and nice. Like I said, suspension, everything else has still been really good for me. I haven't changed anything up. That winch sits in there really nicely. And then the stock tires have actually been really good, so I haven't bothered to change any of that around on it. So that's a quick kind of run through on what I've changed on it so far. We'll touch base on a couple little things that I've noticed with it, and yeah, it gives you guys an idea what you've got to work with anyways. All right, so like I said, a couple little things that I did notice on it. I mean, the shifting, that was already an issue when I first got it. The clunkiness has sort of resolved itself. It's not smooth per se, but that is a Honda thing with these ones here. That clunk out of, like, into reverse, it's fine. Coming back out of reverse, that seems to be where it hangs up a little bit. It's gotten better, but it's not 100%. So that may just be something that may never completely resolve itself. Doesn't affect anything. It's just maybe pet peeve, I guess. It's not as smooth as it could be, but again, for the price point, it, you know, fit and finish, a couple little things. It's not the end of the world. The lighting was one of the other things that I had a little bit of a gripe on. It just wasn't as bright as it could be. Maybe that's just me being picky, but I do tend to run them in the dark a fair bit coming back from our hunting spots or going out first thing in the morning, especially during deer season, right? So I wanted to make sure that the road is lit up well. So I did add the spotlights to it, and I did upgrade the bulbs on it. I found the low beams just weren't quite hacking it. The only other things that I've kind of changed around on it here, little things. After a year of running it, I've figured out what I need, what I don't need, and I've just kind of modified it a little bit from there. I haven't gone over the top. The lighting, the kind of the rack systems to carry the stuff that I need, and then the change on the exhaust, those are kind of the major things. The winch recovery system on it, just for hunting, and then for some stuff around the farm too, it comes in handy. But as far as kind of the stock workings of it, motor, tires, that stuff there, I've left that all stock. I have no complaints with it. It's actually been really good. Power band, I found it does hit its top speed as marked, so it's been good that way. But I do find that definitely is the top speed. As it gets up to that top end, you notice that power band kind of curves off. It fades out a little bit, and then that last kind of 10 kilometers an hour, 8 kilometers an hour, it's going to take you a little bit to get that full speed out of it, but it will do it uphill or on level ground. You don't have to be downhill to hit it, which I found on some other machines has been the case. You know, it'll hit top speed, but it's got to be going downhill and picking up momentum. So it will do it on flat ground, but I definitely noticed that the way it's geared, the power band does kind of fall off at the top end there, and the top end really is the top end on it. But for what I need it for, you know, how often am I running it at, you know, 60, almost 70 kilometers an hour? I've run it that fast just to see whether it would get to that top end, but regular applications, I'm normally running it at 30 to 40K an hour at most, and no issues with the power or with performance wise at that point, right? So no real complaints on it. It's been good. So after a year of owning this thing, I would still say that this is probably a really good choice for you. The solid axle on the Rancher here has been good for pulling implements. I've run the harrow with it. I've run a discer with it in the arena and a groomer. It hauls all that stuff, no problem. Plenty of power, no lag. The only thing I do is kick it into 4x just to make sure I get that extra grip. But it runs all that stuff really well. It's been good out on the hunting trail. I haven't taken it out this spring yet for spring bear. I've been mostly hiking. But today it will come out with me this afternoon, and I did have it out for the fall season last year, and it ran really well. We ran it on our moose hunt for 5 days, every day, you know, all day long pretty well, and it held its own. It did really well. So yeah, like I said, I'd still recommend it after a year running this thing. If anything does creep up, I will update you guys and let you know if we have an issue with it. But as far as the stock machine goes, what you're going to buy from the dealership, it was about $12,000. Taxes and everything in out the door when I bought it brand new last year, and it's been great so far. So that's your Honda TRX Rancher 420.